Good evening, I'm Tips Mahoy, and this is ArthIntel Evening Edition. Coming up, Kushner meets Hamas leadership in Egypt as U.S. pushes Gaza disarmament plan. Live updates. Trump threatens to bomb Oman with Iran war stuck in stalemate as 60-day negotiation period ends. Colombia begins mass mobilization against terror group as Moscow warns of new anti-Russia provocation in Latin America. That, plus a check of the weather across the country. First tonight, the headlines making news around the world. U.S. envoy Jared Kushner met senior Hamas leaders, including Hamas chief Khalil al-Hayya, in Egypt on Sunday as the Trump administration pushes a roadmap for Gaza's disarmament and post-war governance. Also at the table were former British Prime Minister Tony Blair and Board of Peace official Nikolay Mladenov, alongside diplomats from Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. The plan calls for Hamas to surrender its weapons and hand governing control to a new technocratic body. But according to reports, Hamas says it won't disarm until Netanyahu commits to the broader plan, while Netanyahu insists Israeli forces won't withdraw until Hamas actually disarms. Meanwhile, the IDF said it struck a Palestinian Islamic Jihad operative in Khan Younis and a Hamas operative in Nuseirat on Sunday, saying both were advancing attacks against Israel. Monday marked 60 days since the U.S. and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding meant to produce a wider peace deal. But there's no sign the 24-week war is ending. According to Fox News, President Trump threatened to bomb Oman if it gets in the way of U.S. efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, even as Iran's foreign ministry says it has reached its own agreement with Oman on future shipping routes. Presidential advisor Jared Kushner told Fox News that Iran is not showing any interest in a deal that works for the U.S., though he said talks remain very positive. Meanwhile, rising oil prices tied to the conflict pushed U.S. stocks lower, with the Dow dropping 272 points. Colombian President Abelardo de la Espriella is escalating military operations against the ELN guerrilla group, with footage showing troops mobilizing toward the Catatumbo region as part of the U.S.-backed Shield of the Americas initiative. De la Espriella says an attack on his forces will cost the narco-terrorists of the ELN dearly, vowing there will be no truce, while ELN commander Silvana Guerrero has warned the group will resist government incursions into its territory. Meanwhile, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, according to Russian state media Sputnik, claims Western intelligence services are preparing a fake operation, including doctored audio and video, to falsely accuse Russia of arming cartels in Colombia, Venezuela, and Mexico. Those Russian claims remain unverified, and the article notes the standoff could become entangled in wider tensions between Russia and the West. Turning now to politics. Your website should make you money, most don't. Toolbox Development builds sites that actually rank on Google and turn visitors into calls. No contracts. Find them at toolboxdevelopment.net. President Trump told a story Monday about South Korea's payments for the U.S. military presence there, and CNN reports it contains multiple false claims. Trump said South Korea, essentially, wasn't paying before his presidency, and that he got them to agree to $3 billion a year with further increases. In fact, South Korea has shared costs since 1991, paying over $800 million annually under a deal from the Obama era. And the 2019 Trump-era agreement raised the total to under $1 billion, not $3 billion, with no further increases secured before the deal stalled. Trump also claimed Biden immediately rescinded his order after South Korea complained. But according to CNN, Biden did not rescind any Trump agreement since the 2019 deal had already expired before Biden took office. And the Biden administration went on to sign 2 new agreements with South Korean spending increases. Attorney General Todd Blanche says the Trump administration doesn't need Congress's permission to build a planned White House ballroom, arguing lawmakers have already granted that authority. Blanche told Fox News' Shannon Bream, "We believe Congress has already given us the authority to do what we're doing." The project has faced legal trouble since it began, with the National Trust for Historic Preservation challenging it, claiming President Trump lacked authority to overhaul the White House grounds. An appeals court has ordered a halt to construction, and the Justice Department has now asked the Supreme Court to step in. The ACLU has asked the Supreme Court to hear its challenge to a Texas law requiring public schools to display the Ten Commandments in classrooms. The request follows a federal appeals court's April decision upholding the law, which was passed by the Republican-led state legislature last year. The ACLU, representing a group of interfaith parents, argues the appeals court's ruling conflicts with Supreme Court precedent and has deepened confusion in lower courts over Establishment Clause law. The justices, who accept only a small fraction of cases, are expected to consider the request at a closed-door conference after the court's next term begins in October. A similar law in Arkansas was struck down as unconstitutional by a judge there in March. A political fight is escalating over conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, deployed without returning to port since December. Democrats, including Sen. John Ossoff, have blasted President Trump over the extended deployment, while all 13 Democrats on the Senate Armed Services Committee are demanding answers from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth about reported mental health issues and poor morale among sailors. The Pentagon, including Hegseth and Adam Brad Cooper, has pushed back, calling the reports false and saying the carrier has among the lowest mental health case numbers of any active carrier. Republican lawmakers have largely stayed quiet, though Rep. Don Bacon says Congress should hold hearings to get the truth from Navy leadership. Turning now to finance and the crypto markets. This spot is available. ArthIntel reaches a daily news audience on the Evening Edition and across ArthIntel.com. To advertise with us, visit ArthIntel.com. Kraken's parent company, Payward, is joining Anthropic's project Glasswing, tapping into Claude Mythos 5, Anthropic's most advanced AI model built for defensive cybersecurity, designed to analyze code at scale and help developers find and fix vulnerabilities. Access to the tool has so far been limited to organizations that operate or defend critical infrastructure, with Anthropic saying it's still developing safeguards before a wider rollout. Payward argues crypto platforms face security challenges similar to other critical financial infrastructure, since exchanges, custody systems, and settlement rails run around the clock and are frequent targets for attackers. Security has always been an unfair game. An attacker needs to find one flaw. A defender has to find all of them first, every single day, Payward co-CEO Arjun Sethai said, adding that frontier AI is the first thing that flips that asymmetry. Anthropic is telling investors its annualized revenue run rate climbed to $65 billion in July, up sharply from $47 billion in May, and compared to roughly $10 billion in total revenue for all of 2025. That outpaces rival OpenAI, whose run rate recently hit $40 billion, according to CNBC. The numbers come as Anthropic, valued at $965 billion, works to reassure investors despite turbulence with Washington, including a June export control dispute that forced it to temporarily disable 2 of its advanced models, and an earlier Pentagon blacklisting tied to concerns over military use of its technology. The 30-year Treasury yield has surged past 5.31%, its highest level in 19 years, as investors weigh rising oil prices and mounting concerns over the federal budget deficit. Oil jumped Monday, with WTI settling at $84.50 a barrel and Brent at $90.87, after Iran ruled out extending a 60-day deadline for a U.S. deal, according to state media. Strategists at Barclays say the rate increase is being driven less by inflation and more by deficit worries and heavy AI-related debt issuance, while Ameriprise's Anthony Saglambine says investors are increasingly focused on long-term fiscal sustainability. Markets now await Wednesday's release of the Federal Reserve's July meeting minutes, after policymakers voted 9-3 to hold rates steady for a 5th straight meeting. And now, today's top stories from the world of sports. Giants wide receiver Malik Nabers is back on the practice field with his teammates after tearing his ACL last season. Nabers, who had a standout rookie year with 109 catches for over 1,000 yards, missed the rest of last season after the injury in Week 4 and underwent 2 surgeries to repair it. He returned to team drills on Monday wearing a non-contact jersey and says the experience brought his soul back to life after being away from the game. Nabers hasn't committed to playing in the Giants' Week 1 opener against the Cowboys, but he appears to be progressing toward a full workload as the season approaches. The Chicago Cubs shook up their roster ahead of a series against the crosstown rival White Sox, after star shortstop Dansby Swanson suffered a grade 2 oblique strain. According to ESPN's Jesse Rogers, Swanson is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, which would have him back in time for the postseason. In a corresponding move, the Cubs selected the contract of 29-year-old infielder Owen Miller from AAA Iowa, where he's batting .299 with 6 home runs and 52 RBIs this season. The team also called up outfielder Kevin Alcantara and pitcher Javier Assad, while optioning infielder James Triantos to AAA and transferring reliever Daniel Palincha to the 60-day injured list. And finally, here's a look at temperatures across the country right now. It's hottest in Phoenix at 110 degrees, while Chicago is the coolest spot on the board this evening at 71. That's ArthIntel Evening Edition for now, 12 stories coast to coast. I'm Tips Mahoy for ArthIntel, signal over noise. If you appreciate data over drama, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Visit arthintel.com for detailed news updates.